And then, you know, there had been a 2014 task force about recommendations for that department. No one had really followed up on that. We just really felt like we needed someone who was not related to the DOJ process.
Damon has no experience or background in policy. That's not his background.
Well, he was the US Attorney. I mean,
Not policymaking.
Yeah.
That's not a
He was very
policymaker.
related to the DOJ.
I mean, I understand. You asked me about the position.
Yeah,
and
no,
explaining
I'm curious.
the answer. So, so that is why we felt that. So we were just really looking for someone who would have the skill set and the resources and not be dragged in to the DOJ work.
So you
is
reached
the
out to
DOJ.
him?
I think he reached out to us, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
To Brown again.
That's a point to
hire
clarify.
So I have a
Discriminate
concern.
against black and brown.
My concern is this. I am a huge supporter of Mayor Tim Keller. I worked super hard. I'm the chair of a ward in Albuquerque. I motivated a lot of people. I helped get a lot of work out. And when he said, I won't raise taxes without a referendum, fine with me. Then he says, I need to raise taxes, or really it started with city council, but whatever, we got more money to make the city safer. Because we're going to do community policing, because we're going to work in your community. We're not going to target people. That was the implicit what I heard from him. If you had told me when he signed that and when that was passed, that it was going to include 3 hires of $6-figure salaries, who were, by the way, all men, 2 of them questionable, 1 so bad, Damon Martinez, that I also worked hard because of Celinda's education and everybody telling, do you know what this guy did to our community? And if we hadn't worked hard, I think it would have been that we would be running for the CD1. This is heartbreaking to me on these levels, but also on the level of he went back on a campaign promise to raise money. I know that happens. I'm not stupid. I know sometimes you go into a situation you need more money. I'm all for that. Oh, it's going to make our city safer. How is it going to make it safer? By hiring the guy who targeted our black and brown people? No. I back off from that. I am offended. I am disappointed. I am heartbroken, and I believe in my heart that he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's who he is. I don't think that's who you are. I don't think that's who his administration is. But this man that they gave a 6-figure, to people in this community, 6 figures is a lot of money. It's not nothing.
Yes.
This
We
isn't
have
New
to
York.
work 2
It's
and
a lot
3
of money. They're
jobs
giving
just
to this guy
pay our rent around here. So,
Who-
this is just
who has
obscene.
showed who he is very clearly. I mean, to people who study the facts, yeah, I've been at his parties where he's friendly and nice and he's the schmoozer. I get that. But let's look at what he's done. And to have him in a leadership position with ABT, I just think is a huge misstep.
So
Given
I'd
that
just
the
like
DOJ
to,
have to come here, did at any point in time, did it enter your brain during this hiring frenzy to go, just so we don't really mess up, this is what we're thinking. This is what we're going to do. These are the people that we're kind of leaning to, so that you could get some type of bearing, because it looks like you were blindfolded and your foot was super glued to the accelerator and you just ran into a big wall.
I'll take that criticism. Yeah, I mean, I don't know any other department that works with the, sometimes it feels like in APD everything we do goes through like 58 layers of community process, but because of the DOJ, and that's a good thing, but you're right, we did not do that with these hires.
Okay.
You're absolutely right.
It's not too late.
Billy said something.
But that's why, that's why we're here, and that's why I know somebody yelled at me when I said I'm here to listen, but that's like, we're here now, and I'm here to listen,
So
so.
he needs to
so
go.
I'd
Martinez
just like
cannot
to
stay in
add
this
some
community.
basic
second.
facts.
So, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear from all of you, and so some of you are talking over each other, and it's just a little hard for me to hear, so, ma'am.
We have trauma. I'm sorry,
I hear
you're
you.
feeling our emotion.
I get it.
So just some basic facts about Damon Martinez as U.S. Attorney. One, this is a policy-making position. As U.S. Attorney, he did not create any policies, nor was he innovative in ways to prevent crime in New Mexico. Crime actually raised in New Mexico while he was the U.S. Attorney, and more people of color were incarcerated because he agreed to federalize state crimes, thereby allowing harsher sentences to be inflicted on people so they could be warehoused. That's a fact. That's not somebody saying this is a bad thing. That's a fact. And as somebody who works for our city now, it's really hard to trust somebody who supported that. He does not inspire or connect with people. When he was U.S. Attorney, being approached about things like this, nope, this is just the way it's got to be because we've got too much crime. Well, my fear is that he's going to take that same thought process and apply it to his policy making at the city level.
Can I just ask a little procedural question before we move on? Would anybody who's recording be willing to share this with us just so I can share it with the
I can
mayor
share it.
or whatever? Okay, because otherwise I know Michelle's taking notes and Alan's taking notes, but I want to.
Yes,
It's going to be hard for me to capture and relay all this. So even if it's just audio or whatever, I would. Really
I can
appreciate
email it
that.
to you tomorrow.
Okay.
So, and the second thing is during the sting operation, he was called on it, saying, look, you're not getting any big-time drug dealers here. You're getting really small-time people, many of whom hadn't had any convictions in a long time. You're manufacturing crime to make it sitting back and saying, let's bring some people to the table, see what's happening, let's talk to those communities that it's impacting. He didn't. He doubled down on it. Nope, we're going to go out and we're going to hit these communities twice as hard because we are arresting and convicting lots of people, and that's what we need to do. Doesn't matter what kind of people, but we're arresting and convicting people. To me, that's unacceptable. Yeah,
And unethical.
absolutely.
And I
That should go
heard
without
him.
saying.
I heard him say out of his mouth, he laughed and called my community fish in a barrel, and he joked about how easy it was to make mass arrests.
You mentioned that just so I know where that was.
Well, I know that he said it more than once, but he was having a conversation with people that he thought were his friends, who allowed me to hear it. He has many enemies in this community, and for the CD1 race. People understood that narrative. They understood who he was, and they did not vote for him. So how could Tim put him in a position after he lost to represent our community that rejected him?
There was a couple of hands over there.
I just want to kind of reiterate what this good lady had to say as well, and a little bit of flack from some of my friends for the idea of having this discussion. Another thing from a sort of like a political standpoint, because I wasn't as intimately involved with the things that many of these people know very well about occurrences during his time as U.S. Attorney, but I watched his campaign. And he had the audacity to do something in the waning week of that campaign, which was to slap the word progressive all over his TV commercials. The most conservative candidate for Congress of all 8 of them that were running. He had the audacity to slap progressive. What that means is that is an individual who will do anything and say anything to acquire power. That is the last thing you want in such a sensitive position at such a sensitive time going on. And if Tim is willing to bring that into his house,
what isn't he willing to do?
Yeah, I mean, this has already been, the vote was a referendum. I mean, even though he was calling himself progressive, he was also basically aligning with law and order policies, hard line, policies that are proven time and time again, especially in communities with a makeup like Albuquerque, not to work at all. I mean, from big cities to small cities, the cities that are making progress with crime and substance disorders and addictions and are the ones that are actually going and reaching out to the most vulnerable in the communities and finding new ways to, work
Embrace that
as a
whole-
police force instead of as, just, taking a club to everyone. It's a more humane way. And Damon and Martinez has time and time again, said that, from things from stop and frisk and, just wholesale arrests and it's back to the policies of New York City in the, 70s and 80s. It doesn't work.
So my first experience with Damon Martinez was at a CPC meeting up in the Heights, up at Domingo Baca Community Center, whatever that place is called. He was invited to do a presentation as the U.S. Attorney about what he was doing as the U.S. Attorney. He spent an hour and a half, at least an hour and a half, talking about what he was going to do about heroin. And in the context of that, he admitted he had a family member who died of a drug overdose. This seems to drive his own personal agenda toward drugs. And whatever it is that he is doing, he has a blind spot about addiction and what the impacts are and how the community should be responding. And he is using his personal problem about losing a family member in creating these kind of policies and bringing these kind of behaviors into our community. And this is a policy. This is the kind of thing that leads to policies. This is problematic. He has a personal issue about addiction. I do not know the background. I don't know more about it. I believe it has to do with somebody who lived in Espanola or Rio Riva, where he came from. I don't know, but it is a blind spot, and it is problematic that he is going to be making policies with a personal background that does not allow him to understand the problems that we are facing in the community. And he is going to go his way to solve that problem based out of some personal issue that he has. It's wrong. He went on and on and on. It was the worst presentation I have ever heard from a public official. I really think ever from any public official was at that meeting. It was relentless, it was stupid, and it was a waste of time. And you gotta figure out how to get rid of him. Because we will not, you will not be rid of us as long as he is working.
As long as he is here.
We will not relent.
I won't vote for him.
I just wanted to say real quick, and I don't really have any factual kind of thing to add, but what you said really, because I voted for Tim, I campaigned for Tim, I did fundraising for Tim, even my husband came with me. Well, in fact, our car got wrecked the night that he won the election. There's great hope. And I have thought about it over this time. That's a lot to put on someone's shoulders. But I feel like he's the person that could listen to this. I think there's such substance to this. I think it's really important. I think a real mistake has been made in hiring Damon Martinez. I will grant you on the other guy, I think people can learn, and he may bring something with him of value, that remains to be seen. But with Damon Martinez, we've seen it, it's fresh.
The wounds are fresh. Ma'am, you had your hand up for a minute.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about this Damon Martinez. You guys put him in this position that he has access to the policies of APD, okay? How do we not know that he will follow them? He didn't follow them when he was a U.S. attorney. What makes you think he's gonna follow them now? Like everything he's done, he's gonna do whatever he wants to do, and nobody can tell him different. And he's showed that. He's showed that in everything he's done. and like, you're, like, you know, I'm hoping that Mr. Keller will change what he's doing and really look into the people that he's hiring, because these people that he's hired have like targeted our community, and those people that Damien targeted, like, were some of my friends and family. I mean, and they're deeply affected by it.
Their face, many are 20 years to life in prison. Right now, they're fighting for their lives.
And some of these people were people who were living in halfway houses.
Or
who
their
were
core.
clean, and that he sent people in there and enticed them. Call up your old drug buddies. I need to score some meth. And this went on, and there was, you need to read what Jeff Proctor has written about this. He did a whole series about Damon Steen. And, you know, it's shocking what the lengths that they went to get people who weren't even, I mean, at this
Doing
point, were
crimes.
had come out of prison and trying to turn their lives around. Now they're back in for who knows how long. It's a crime. This is a crime, what he did to this community.
He should be in.
And
He's
Barbara's
the one that
right.
should have
You need
been-
to get rid of him tomorrow morning. He should be called up and told, you're not welcome to return to the city of Albuquerque.
Because it's not just the people in jail, it's all their families.
To this situation, I would like to speak to the one lady that was involved in this situation. Out of the sting, there was one lady that was caught up. I met the lady in my former job. I'm the one who got her the job where they tricked her off at. It wasn't until I was in a meeting with the city councilman and he was trying to get DOJ, Damien, and them to come. And I met her mother. To find out that she was the one. Because when I kept reading it wasn't connecting to me what they was talking about. Until we was at the meeting and he talking about the young lady that was working at Buckethead and was in a halfway house. And I'm the one who had put her at Buckethead. And so I had just about a few days before this took place, she had just gotten out of prison. She had just gotten out of prison, had just got back with her children. And he sicked his dog on this young lady. I never could understand how he was allowed to go hire some felons from another state to bring them here to set up these people. And as Serena said, most of them was homeless. They were not the worst of the worst.
So,
I wanna
I
make one
think
very
you had
quick
your
point.
hands up, and then I just want to make sure I hear from everybody, you, sir, too, so.
Just 2 sentences.
Mhm.
If you are willing to not hire your potential city clerk candidate because she owes some taxes, how in the hell can you hire Damon Martinez after all that you've heard
We were
about
willing to
all
go to
this?
battle for our city clerk candidate. She was.
I know her. She's a very confident
this
and
kind
able
of thing
person.
happened with
No,
other
I
people,
know.
so,
I
yeah.
But
know
we're
I
saying
know
that
her.
these people are more problematic than that.
No, I just wanted to let you know, like, I was willing to go to bat for Charlotte and for
But
everybody
I'm
who
just
has
saying
bad
that
credit
if
in this
that's a
state.
measure
But
that'll
yeah.
kill you from a position like that, then the story you just heard here is
I hear you. I just want to make
way
clear
beyond
it
that.
didn't with Charlotte. Like,
Yeah.
I hate hearing you say that. I hate hearing you say, I'm listening. I hear that. That's empty, empty words. What's your action?
Fire him.
Yeah, Justin.
I have a real problem with what you're doing. I mean, you're telling us how it's gonna be, and, I spent a good majority of my adult life in prison behind things like this. I don't approve of Damon Martinez being in our city, because some of my friends are still inside of those walls because of things like this. I mean,
Take your time, take your time.
This is not right. I mean, you need to You need to get rid of him. I'm telling you, you need to get rid of him.
He's predatory.
I want to share, I can't prove it, but the very night before Damon got his big money from out of state on his campaign, I had been railing against him for almost, since he had announced, I had been railing against him. I was probably the most outspoken. The night before he got his big money from out of state and started his media campaign here, weeks out from the election, my house was shot up with an AR. APD took 20 minutes to come to my house. I ran through my house throwing my children on the floor. They unloaded an entire clip into the front of my house. And when APD showed up, they said, who are your enemies in the community? I said, Damon Martinez and the federal government. Yeah. I have no enemies in this community.
And she lives in Nob Hill.
I have a community house. I feed people out of my house. The young people from New Day came to my house the next day and they said, Celinda, who would do this? You have a house of love. Nobody in the community would do this to you. I know it wasn't the community. I know that Damon Martinez sent CIs to shoot up my house, to silence me, because he was trying to keep power and win an election.
20 minutes.
I believe that.
20 minutes to show up to a house in Nob Hill is non-existent. That doesn't happen.
5 minutes away from a substation.
As a member of the community, I want to know what you guys will guarantee us as a community that he won't do what he's done before. Like, how can you make us feel safe that this guy is not going to do what he did before to the black and brown community? And he's hurt us. He's literally hurt us, not like emotionally, physically, and like how can you guys as an administration guarantee us that we're going to be okay
with either of these hires?
I don't hear that we're going to be okay with this man being in the position he's in, because he has access to them policies and he's going to do whatever he wants.
So I just want to say that I appreciate this meeting, but I also know this meeting is to pacify the community, and so that's disheartening. And then I also want to say this is probably the first time you'll ever see the community in alignment with the police union. And so not only are we outcrying against Damon Martinez, the police union is saying that. So I would love to meet with the police union so we can come together as one, so we can make sure that this hire is out, because it seems like you're going to continue to have these people in these positions, and as a community, we're going to have to organize and fight. And I know why you're in the position you're in, because you're really good at your job, but we're also good at ours. And so we're going to have to organize to actually fight to get, I know at least Martinez out, because there's plenty of facts. I don't know if we have enough facts on other people, but for Martinez, there's clear factual evidence what he has done to target our vulnerable populations. Many of those people come from the community that I grew up with as well. And so, but that doesn't matter, because he targeted black and brown communities, and I don't believe or trust him. And I've actually had a conversation with Damon Martinez about what he's done. And so I even appreciated that time, because I needed to voice. And so I appreciate this time for people to voice their concerns. But this meeting is just to pacify us, which is disheartening.
I know, and you're having another one with APD Forward tomorrow. And I know that many others have reached out to you for meetings, and I know that you're doing these series of meetings. And that is just more layers of trauma and harm. And I hope that Tim understands that. We hope that you are taking our voices seriously. We all are away from our families tonight. We haven't had dinner yet. And we had 2 hours notice, and we showed up here because it means that much. This man cannot hold power in APD or anywhere else in this city. He has harmed us.
And that's hearing us, is making sure that he's no longer in that position. That's what's called hearing us, is taking our voices to action.
And I did hear you. I want to say this. I heard you. I do understand the Betsky, or whatever the name is, from Jersey. I understand, and I didn't understand that anything else I read. So I appreciate understanding your point of view. Your point of view, if I could summarize it, is, yes, he may have had an issue in the past. All of us feel that just because he wasn't ever found by his own department a problem isn't a problem. But okay, forget that part.
Hold on.
But that he went through a process of change within a department, and that's valuable because we need to change. And so I hear that's what you're saying you see in him. So I didn't hear that. I didn't know that when I walked in, and I hear it now, and I appreciate it. Of course, I want to make sure we have safeguards in place, and it's tricky because he's a data guy, and data guys are hard to watch. I'm a data person. So I think that I would offer, or somehow I'd like to have some monitoring, if I may, and I would volunteer for that. I want someone to be watching what's going on, because that's a very sensitive position, how you manage data. But I understand now that there was an understanding that he might bring something to the table that would be helpful, and I appreciate that. I did hear you. I'm hoping that you heard us about Damon Martinez.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I would actually follow up on what Neda said earlier, and also I was having had dinner also, but actually, you may be aware this is an election coming up. I'm looking around the room and thinking there are a whole lot of volunteer hours not happening right now because of who these people are.
Getting the vote out.
That I was slated to be making calls for Michelle as it happens tonight, but like I think almost all of us are working every night.
Get the
all
vote
the
out
time.
activity.
We're trying to get and then that reminded me that I look around the room and I can count at least 4 or 5 people who I met for the first time at Tim's campaign headquarters that are in this room with me right now. And so I hope he appreciates who it is that's sitting here. And then I'll just throw this unrelated, but because it's a thing that I've been thinking as everybody else spoke about Damon, that and the emotion in this room, in part is because these are fresh wounds. There are bleeding hearts in this room over what happened. This isn't something from decades ago. And I think that's important because frankly, it's used as an excuse in a lot of these cases. So if it's an excuse, sometimes we need to acknowledge that's not what's happening here. This is a fresh wound in Albuquerque. And it's also something that he's had many opportunities to acknowledge. And he chooses not to. It's not as if all the flaws remain unknown. The racially disparate impact, if nothing else, is well known, and then you can look behind it at the methods and the individual cases and everything that happened. And someone who cared about any of that could, and it wouldn't be the end of your career to acknowledge that this program didn't run the way I wanted it to entirely, or there are little things he could acknowledge, and he hasn't even done that, and so that
You won't be accountable.
that worries me. So
You should also know the other thing that came out in the discovery is that he lied in his data. They put 11 white names into the data, and we've been able to prove that 9 at least of those white names are fictitious. They didn't even exist. He did it to manipulate and lie about the data to pretend like he was not attacking black and brown people. That's who you have in this position.
Just wanted to, she put her hand up for a while, so.
Sure. I think if you listen to the voices that have been raised, there's ample evidence as to why this hire of Damon Martinez is a mistake. People are allowed to make mistakes. Mayor Tim made a mistake with this hire. It will not stand. And I know he values community. And I respected the first decision he made on his first day of firing all the commanders and having them reapply and only rehiring one. Respected that a lot. I thought that was a bold move. This is a watershed moment in his career. He acts like he's got community, and he's about to lose community, depending on how he responds to this. If he doesn't retract this hire, he's going to lose all legitimacy and all the consent from the community. He's going to lose that. Is that what he wants to do? I think a real leader admits when they make a mistake, and Mayor Tim made a mistake with this hire of Damon Martinez. Completely unacceptable.
Love.
I do, but I pushed a little bit, so I got a lot of time.
So it sounds like we're wrapping up now. Could you share with us your next steps on this situation? You've absolutely heard that Mr. Martinez's problem. The gentleman from New Jersey, the optics are horrible in this environment. And so my question to you is, what are your next steps, and how are you going to communicate that, not only to this group, but to our community as a whole?
Great questions. Does anyone else want to, so this sounds like, you're inviting sort of wrap-up comments. I want to make sure if there's anybody else.
Yeah, I have one more. I forget the gentleman's name from New Jersey, and I don't want that to get just pushed aside because of a bigger problem. Because I find that problematic too, even though it was 22 years ago. Because many police forces they allow things to drop off. They don't keep continuous records. And New Jersey, isn't a state with police forces that inspire any confidence in record keeping or holding officers accountable for actions. And it's not as if he made a small clerical error or something 22 years ago. He did what's happening now on a that's been happening, but is now recorded on a daily basis. That we have to, all see over social media and the news every single day. And it's dangerous. And just because he's not on the, racists don't change very easily. And violent people don't change very easily.
And
so,
I think
to think there's not another human being in this country that can do that job is just ridiculous.
And maybe it should be a person of color. And I don't understand why Tim would bring two racists into leadership at APD.
I'm a vet. I want you to know how important this is to me, to my community. I suffer from PTSD, anxiety, and it is killing me to be in this room. But I am staying here because this Damon guy can't be here. He should not be in this community. I have fought for every single one of you. And I will do it again. If it's at the voting booths or ballots, it doesn't matter. This is my community, and this guy doesn't need to be here. He's going to make it worse. We need to take those 3 jobs and turn it back into the community. That money should have been funded into the community to start off with.
Thank you. Yes, because we're all hungry. And so, first of all, thank you all for coming on such short notice. I completely understand why you would feel like this is just to pacify you, but I don't know what else to say other than that's not my intention. And also, very few people get meetings with me on 2 hours notice, so it may not be as meaningful to you as all of that, but I do want you to know that this is kind of like an extreme measure that doesn't normally happen, and it was done because the mayor does consider listening to this group so important and couldn't personally be here. Sir, do you want to say something?
I just had one question. When we were talking about this sting operation, you seem to not know about it. Did you know about it?
I knew some of the things about it, but what I'm hearing, so to your point, sir, this conversation should have happened, regardless what the outcome of this conversation is, it should have happened before we made the offer, before we.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will look right into the camera and say that, and it's, I think you said you had your foot glued to the accelerator. Is that the metaphor? Yeah, it is hard because things move so slowly, especially in the world of APD reform, to imagine that we went too quickly through something, but we should have had this conversation beforehand. And we did.
Let her finish.
So I wanted to acknowledge that right off the bat. I think you asked sort of what are my next steps. I mean, my next steps are I really want to talk to the folks at APD and the mayor and sort of share these concerns. And I would love to even show him parts of the video, or he might even want to watch it all, if that's okay with the folks here.
Yes.
I do think, I've learned a lot, and also I do feel the emotion in this room, and I feel the pain, and it just saddens me as somebody who's been on the other side of these meetings, I'm grateful for you sharing it, but I'm saddened that you had to. But, this is where we are.
Just to let you know, it's not just pain, it's fear too. There's a lot of fear about this.
Expressed that all very well. And also everybody's, been super, way more articulate and thoughtful about their comments than I would have been able to be had our tables been reversed. So I also just want to acknowledge that not everybody in the community is willing to come and sit down and have these conversations before things go too far. And I really appreciate that, especially you're sort of having that interaction with the mayor yesterday and being willing to kind of have this as part 2 of that is, I just really appreciate that. So in terms of communication, I think whoever, we have the sign-in, I actually did think it was a good idea to put emails or whatever, I think she was just trying to get it done, but if we still have the visitors log, if you have time, if not, we'll make sure to get it to, is it Celinda? Celinda, yeah, okay. We'll be sure to get it to Celinda, and maybe she can help us get it distributed to other folks.
I have.
If you have everybody.
This is my team.
And we
you have no idea how powerful this team is right here.
But I do. And also,
a lot of us represent a lot of people.
These are change makers in this room.
I see that. And so we also do have the meeting someone raised with APD forward tomorrow. I want to have that. So to your question, you're not going to hear from me in the next 2 hours. But as soon as we have, something to share, we will share it openly. And I do think, I don't want to make any decisions here in the room, but if people would be willing to sort of meet with Leonard and hear sort of his story, I think that might be an important and powerful step.
I agree.
But let's just sort of park that. Definitely if we continue to move in that direction, we'd love to do that, but let me just sort of
It's also not
park
too late
all
on the
of
hire.
that. So
Just want to flag that.
What is the timeline for these hires?
Yeah, he started last Monday.
Well, Damon's already on the payroll.
And what about
The other guy hasn't
Monday?
started yet, so we just want to flag that there is time to stop that.
Understood.
Can I ask clarification on something you said earlier?
Yes, sir.
Did Damon Martinez actively sought this position?
That's what
and was not recruited?
No, I just couldn't remember.
Because this is a man who did leave a law firm job at $450,000 because he likes power. That's why he's here. That's why he took the paycheck. It's not a public servant. He wants to stay in the law enforcement power. That's why he's here.
Anyone else? I do have to get to
Just
another
one
meeting.
suggestion.
Yes, sir.
It's not too late to do what you should have done way before you stepped into this nonsense.
Yeah, right. There's always time to do the right thing. Yep.
Go
Always.
and bring the people that the community brought here because of people like them.
Mm-hmm.
I gave up everything to bring the DOJ here because my community asked me to. I don't live in my house anymore. I rent. I owned my home. I live in an apartment. I don't like living in an apartment. But that's where I live now. It's not too late to go and get some clarity on this, or they're going to live here forever. Because I'll make sure they do. That's a promise from the good hands people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you.